That is such a happy song. I love it.
It's almost like it's a happy let's dance. A happy let's
Yes, yes. I mean, this is what we need to do. Happy, peppy times, right? When the situation may not warrant it, but we have to look at life sometimes through those lenses. So, Syya, what are we doing here?
I know. Sorry, everybody, but we are not Cindy and Christina. We're definitely not Cindy and Christina, like in a lot of different ways.
Sheer
uh,
amazingness of the ladies, Christina and Cindy. Thank you. Thank you for allowing us this platform, your space, your show, and just everything amazing that you've done. What do I have there? Look at that. Yay.
oh, I know. Oh, wait. Oh my gosh. Woohoo!
That's what I'm talking about. So that's the YouTube plaque, y'all, in case y'all can't really see it from afar. But yes, we are super excited. It's an honor for me to be here and to do an official takeover of who?
What? And
Engines off.
oh wait. Do I have a honk honk? Oh, I don't. I really got to get new soundboard
I
action going
I
on
think we
here.
got to work on that for sure. But for sure. But guys, welcome. Thank you so much again for our amazing ladies and hosts of the show Engines Off. This is quite an honor for us to be here to discuss quite a topic that really honestly is not really talked about. However, we need to normalize it. And we have ourselves an amazing guest. We're going to dive into the topic, talk a little bit more about what it means, what can we do, and how we can prepare as a family and individuals.
Look,
Hmm.
look. We know this is a very serious topic, but we also know in all those darkest moments of life, there's always light, even on the circle on the edges. So I'm just preemptively saying I can't be all that serious all that often. I'm just warning everyone in advance. I apologize if I'm inappropriate, but you know what? That's okay because I think this is a great conversation for us to call things out and ask. So everyone, please, that is in the comments, ask your questions you've always wanted to ask because we've got this month's guest, Kim Burgess. Kim is oh my gosh, okay, you know all the certifications. I'm so bad.
Yes, senior care manager, geriatric manager, end-of-life doula. And as I was telling Miss Kim, that is a conversation starter because I don't come across, even though I'm in the healthcare business, I don't come across with many end-of-life doulas, and it's an interesting concept, and for people who don't understand it, it can be completely misguided, and so that's why we're here. That's why she's back, because she's been here before. But we have so many questions. So many people, the audience, had many questions that they want to ask in public. But remember, no shame. Okay, this is all educational, informative. It's meant to be a supportive community because we all need this information.
Exactly. So, guys, you're in a seriously safe space. Ask your questions. There's nothing that's going to be completely inappropriate. Well, we'll know if it's inappropriate, but there's nothing there that is totally like, off the wall that, if you're really curious about, let's do it. So, everyone, please welcome the one and only Ms. Kim.
Hello.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you for having me back.
Welcome. It's a joy to have you here because I know you bring so much information, especially to a topic in our lives that we often don't talk about. And so it's a wonderful time to gather, everyone together and actually learn. This is a family event, as I call it.
This
It
is so
is.
true.
Yes.
It is one of those things where I just wish people would talk about early and prepare early. So thank you so much for having this as a discussion today.
I don't know of anyone that even just glances at us talking today that it doesn't resonate in some capacity. Because ain't no one leaving this marble rock
So true.
alive, right? Like we're all gonna
Mhm.
have to face this. We're gonna have to face this with our loved ones. And I'm sorry, too many of us, and I'm guilty of it, and we can talk more, but we put our heads in the sand.
Oh, for sure.
Kim, why do you think that is? Why is there such a reticence of like planning and addressing our end of lives?
Right. And it's interesting because people have their, to-do list, and people have their wishes before they die, right? They have their bucket
Mhm.
list, as we call them. But the bucket list never has on there, let's really talk about after that bucket list is completed, right?
Mm.
Is how we want to end, and how we want to spend that time, either where we want to spend the time, who we want to spend that time. Now, granted, this is for people who have diagnosed with a terminal illness and not necessarily an immediate tragic accident or an
Mm.
immediate death. But with that being said, if we can plan, talk, have those conversations, and know what your family and loved ones want, what a gift you could give to your loved ones to have these conversations.
Oh my God. Absolutely what you said, completely resonates, and it's across the board. This crosses boundaries, the cultures,
Right.
languages, everyone needs this. So one of the biggest questions that I had out of curiosity, Ms. Kim, is what led you to become an end of life, doula? Because it's not
Yeah.
often that we run across someone like you.
You don't. And here in the Midwest, I'm in the St. Louis Metro East area. There's really not a whole lot of us. And with that, my nursing career began out of high school. I went to nursing school and I did home health nursing. And at that time, it was either you love or you hate home health, I think. And with that, I just got to realize that all these people, as they age, want to age with grace, but want to age, and they all have their idea of where and when and how they want to age. But with that, I loved that, and I loved helping people transition to either hospice or that supportive care in the end. After doing home health for 17 years, I went to get my master's and became a geriatric nurse practitioner. And at that time, I thought, you know what, I'm going to do something amazing with that career, and I did. But then I still didn't get that fulfillment of how do I hold hands and walk through this journey. And an end of life doula program is what I researched, and that was exactly it. We talk about birthing doulas, which
Yes.
was a foreign concept many, many years ago. And that is now kind of a norm. And now end of life doulas, birthing doulas, you're transitioning into life, and end of life doulas. Why can we not have somebody there, a supportive person to do a holistic approach and a guide as we transition out?
And go ahead. Tia. You're muted. I can't hear you.
I muted myself because I was typing, but yeah, no, there's a lot of folks like starting up.
Yeah.
Like, if you see me typing, I swear to God, I'm not trying to be rude, people, but there's a lot of wonderful questions and like comments here that like Cambria and Janice. We'll get to you guys in a second here, but I have to ask you, because both of you ladies being in home healthcare
Mhm.
space, that's a very selfless job.
Yeah.
Like, you really
Well,
give, but then you heighten it with the end of life process, which is, the outcome is, it is what it
Mhm.
is. How do you manage that mentally, you guys? Both, this is a question for both of you guys. I get it. Like, why would you go into something? Because you guys are both compassionate and beautiful souls, but it's got to be tearing on you. So how do you guys manage that? I guess is where my brain just instantly went when you guys were
I
talking.
will tell you, when I started doing this, it was really tough to process. And then I realized I needed some self-care. With every death that I support, I allow myself, and not as a selfish thing, but I need to regain my energy, and I do a 90-minute massage.
Oh,
So
yeah.
for every and that's not, I think originally I thought it was going to be, oh, I'm going to, do a selfish thing, but it really just recenters me, and during that quiet time I'm able to reflect, and be able to process what went right and how I can still improve. There's always room for improvement, and what can I bring to the next family, and what did I learn?
Yes, and
What
I
about
love
you?
that.
Yeah,
I love that because at the end of the day, it is a calling, and we
sure.
may go through life negating the fact that each one of us has a calling in life, and
Mhm.
it takes however long for us to find it. But I knew very early on in my childhood that I wanted to help people. I just didn't know how.
Mhm.
But everything took me to, becoming a doctor, saving lives and all of that. But
Mhm.
after going through young adulthood and to adulthood, it solidified more in the administrative kind of
Mhm.
concept. And so being able to educate folks, right? Going back to the basics is for
Right.
me was definitely a way. Being able to disseminate information, being able to impart wisdom, knowledge,
Mhm.
empowers people. And so for me, I felt that to this day, it still is my calling. So just helping families, as Kim beautifully summarized it.
Mhm.
Oof. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, okay. So I'm all over the place right here because I want to talk about everything. I have all the questions for you, Kim. I really do. But Janice is like, okay, so Janice, love you, girl. Founder of Chelsea Brands, by the way, and you'll see her ad later. But
Yay!
she's
Yeah.
asking what to do if your 91-year-old mother-in-law doesn't want to have that conversation.
It's really interesting. I actually have a client currently, an 80-year-old Parkinson's gentleman, and the same. I
Mm.
wanted to have that conversation with him and his son, and his son is saying, you know what, dad doesn't like having that conversation. And it's interesting because I would love to sit and have that conversation, and some people are just not ready for it, and I can't force it. So, for example, just yesterday, I was accompanying him at the eye doctor. And as we were sitting in the waiting room, we were kind of joking around about, things. And he made a comment about, well, do what you want with my body. And I said, well, it's actually your body. So what do you want? And I said, do you want to be buried? Do you want cremation? Do you want to donate your body to science? What do you want? So it wasn't like, hey, I had planned on a Tuesday at 9 o'clock while we're in the waiting room. The eye doctor had a conversation, but at any opportunity they bring it up, I'm able to chisel away more information. So that's how I would approach it. If you can get them to have any tidbit of information or conversation at any time, is going to be working.
Oh my goodness. Yes. That I think planning for that conversation. And I'd like to share, when I had this conversation with my father, just being the first one in my family to actually start doing things differently, to
Mhm.
change the narrative, to change just how we do things, to prepare. It was not an easy thing. It was very
Mhm.
difficult for me to sit him down and say, "Hey, Dad, so I want to make sure we are prepared. I want to make sure that we are ready for when the time comes."
Mhm.
And I, as a professional, even as a professional, a healthcare professional myself, when it's your family, it's hard to find the words that will resonate with the person. But I remember telling my dad, I said, "Hey, what would your wishes be? Would you
Mhm.
want to go back to El Salvador? Would you want to stay here? Because we're originally from El Salvador."
Sure.
And so, that is a process. Do you want to be with your mom? Do you want to be with your wife? What would you like to do? And so he just said, just ashes. Like
You know
that.
what?
I'm like, Dad. I was
Right.
like, he's like, ashes, just burn me. I'm like, what, Dad? And he made it humorous. But for
Right.
me, it was like, I'm trying to be sensitive here, Dad.
S
So,
But can I just tell you, okay, that's great, and I literally have my dad behind me, like, that little nook that you see back there, because he's like, "I don't care, do what you will with me," and then subsequently, like, we're like, "No, we're not gonna just, like, ugh," and I just want everyone to throw it out there. I'd like to say that I'm a perfect example of why, Kim, you exist and why I wish I'd known you earlier. So, we had a step parent
Yeah.
situation, an
Yes.
original life
Yes.
situation, right?
Yes.
And let's just say, we didn't have a lot of control or say
mm,
at the end
Yes.
stages because, that person dictated it. And I can't fault that individual because they did spend, 30 years with my dad. But at the
Sure.
same time, it was like we had zero say in anything. And then it wasn't until after the actual physical
Yeah.
passing of my father that she's like, deuces, I'm out of here, bye. And we're like,
Oh my
what the heck,
gosh.
dude? So
I
that's why my
hear
dad's with me. That's
this.
100%.
This is so typical. This is so typical. And let
mm,
me throw out there, if there is any way, what I love is it's called the Conversation Project. If no one has
mm,
seen that, you Google it. It's conversationproject, I think, .com, to be honest. And the Conversation Project is amazing. And that is where I love to start with families ahead of time if we have the time. Okay, there are some people that I know we're down to days and hours. Okay,
Yeah. Oh,
we're
yeah.
in crisis mode, and I need to prep faster. But if I am able to get to them ahead of time where we have prep time, it's having those conversations. And it is, what does a good day look like for you? And, who do you want to be involved in your care? Do you want to pass at home, or do you want to be in a facility or a hospital or a hospice house? Hospice houses are so amazing. We have a few in St. Louis. Gosh, I'm just hoping there's more and more and get funded and can be available, because the burden, not even burden, the amount of caregiving that goes into somebody during the end of life is very time consuming, emotional, physical, and the whole 9 yards. And having symptoms controlled by experts around the clock, I would love to see. It would be my dream.
Mm.
So always look into that too. But those conversations ahead of time with the Conversation Project is a great .org. Thank you, conversation.org. But with that, it really breaks down all those important questions. How much do you want to know about your disease? Maybe you don't. Maybe you just want to say, you know what, it is what it is. Please don't give me all the details, and I'm just going to let my natural life process as it needs to be. So there's just so many options and questions and things that can be answered with the guidance of that.
And what are some of the misconceptions that people get about what you do, or, what the service is? Because I know I'm sure you're bombarded with thousands of questions, but
I
what are
was
some of the
actually just
main ones?
yesterday on the track field watching my daughter at her track meet. Are you replacing hospice? No, I'm not
No.
replacing hospice. I collaborate with hospice, and really it's just another layer of support for them. So hospice is amazing. Hospice is there to provide the equipment, the hospital bed, that type of thing, if you're going to be in the home setting with that. But then I'm there to also give additional support. The nurses and the aides and the social workers and the pastoral care all come along with hospice and do their visits, but they're not there more than usually 45 minutes to an hour, a couple times a week, right? So I also give support as I do. I love doing guided imagery. If you can't physically get somewhere that you love or you've traveled before, let's take you there through guided imagery. So guided imagery is an amazing thing that I work with clients on. Or I work on a legacy project, right? Doing videos and having this legacy project put together. Just so many different things that we can do to capture that moment on audio and video still, and families could have to cherish. But then also just anything from playing music. I have a lady who does the bowls and do a lot of, Zen moments and relaxation and that type of stuff too. So it's just being able to be at peace.
You know
Yeah.
what you just struck me is there's joy in planning in general, and the irony of it all is I'm not a planner, but there is something about having like that checklist of, like you said, it like a bowl, music, maybe colors or scents, right? Like because your five senses start to like
100%
come on board, could go down, whatever. And it's
Right.
good to have like that checklist maybe of, because you're just making me remember like unfortunate family members that have passed that I've been around in their final days. How amazing would it be that you can set the space for them that is like that let them be comfortable in their happy space, right? Like listening to whatever it is, or smelling whatever it is, or tasting whatever it is. Like, because I just remember the hospice nurse was like, I asked, I go, well, what should we feed my dad? And she's like, honey, anything he wants. Give him anything he wants to taste some of that meat. Like, let him, like chew on the juices if he needs to, right? And
one of my ladies, she just loved chocolate. So we were putting a chocolate chip under her tongue.
Oh.
every couple hours, and it really goes back to that. It's those senses, right? One of my ladies was an amazing quilter. And so I talked to the family and I said, please give her some of her fabrics, different textures of her fabrics. So we went digging. Yes, we went digging into her material drawers, and we just put those in her hands. And she had mittens that she had crocheted. We put those on. It's just getting back to the touch of what
Mm.
that feels like, what your love and passion is, and what you enjoyed.
So I've lately in my life, I've been in a very reflective mode, and I don't, I'm just curious. Sitting for you, sitting
Mhm.
with literally death and transitions
Right.
and passings. How has that changed the way you live on a daily basis?
It is absolutely breathtaking when you see somebody take their last breath,
Mm.
right? It is something that I've witnessed numerous times, and being able to hold a hand during that time, or making sure that I'm seeing those signs and symptoms and I get the family member immediately to stand there or to sit there and hold their hand. But with that, you do not take life for granted, and you cherish those moments, and you take those trips, and you go to those track meets, even though you've got a ton of other things to do. You really do make sure to foster those relationships that you want to foster, and those that are negative energy, you just kind of let go. You really just repurpose what your thought is and what your purpose is here.
So, do you have Raquel, do you have any questions more about, like, the logistical component of it? Because I think I wanna shift towards the the body, if you will, like, us
Yeah,
at
Yeah.
the
yeah,
end of
yeah.
can we shift it to like, our biology side now of that
Yeah,
kind of thing?
yeah. And
'Cause
oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
That's where hospice is really good as well, and I'm able to help coach the family. Is I love some quick little tidbit books that we have that gives, these are the months, they start withdrawn, they don't want to watch the news, they just kind of stare out the window, right? And don't push them, or don't make them have those conversations with neighbors that they're just kind of done with, or
Yeah,
they're starting to withdraw from, because they know that they're not going to be around 6 months from now, right? So they don't want to know what's going on in the news anymore, because it doesn't pertain to them, right?
right.
And we got to take those, and we need to know how to foster that, and how to appreciate what they're going through, and how to coach them through that, and how to coach families that it's okay, right, that they don't want to do the things that you thought that they loved once again, way back when they felt well. The other thing is, in terms of nutrition, you made a comment about the meat. You're right. Meat is the first to go. People will stop eating meat because it's hard to digest,
Yeah.
right? So it's that, what do I feed them now type of thing. Because anybody wants to give them an Ensure or a protein drink or a boost or whatever, but is that really what they're palating as their last? But that's all the family knows what to do. So it's really having those conversations, and me there supporting to say, you know what, meats are too hard to digest, and so are raw vegetables, right? But let's get things that they would still enjoy. And that's, those chocolate chips, or it's the
Right.
Sprite, or it's the little sip of wine that I gave a lady just the day before she passed a couple
That's
months
hey,
ago,
now we're speaking my
right?
language. I mean, you could do, like, a little bit of, like, beef juice though, right? I mean, it's
For
like, what
sure.
not beef juice, what's that called?
But
Broth?
yeah, broth. Yeah.
Right, yeah. So this is like, Janice is like catching what I'm pitching here. So this is where I want to go, kids. I just
Yes.
ask, has any passing confirmed for you that there's something beyond this life?
I think so, man. Of course, I've never been in that moment, but it's amazing. I have to tell you my last experience. I was two families ago that I supported as an end of life client, and it's the lady, oh, the terminal illness lady was in her home, and actually, it's such a sweet story. So she had this home, and she actually moved into a dementia memory care unit, but they kept her home, and she was then in the hospital. I met the family there, And they said, you know what, we're going to transition to hospice. We think it's time. I agree. Our symptoms are leading that way. And I said, but does she want to go back to the memory care unit with support, or does she really want to be in her own home that she raised you children in? And they said she would want to be in her home. I said, great, we're going to make arrangements for that. So I met the family there that evening. We looked at the space. They thought they would want to put her back in her bedroom. But you look at the logistics of the way the older house is, and how do you get somebody on a stretcher in and out? And so I said, you know what, this is definitely going to be more a holistic, and people want to sit with her. And so we cleared out the dining room. And we just made that space very comfortable. We put some recliners and a hospital bed from hospice, and we made the dining room her final space. And it ended up being beautiful. And her daughter-in-law was her main caregiver during those last weeks. And when I walked in, she said, I just want to let you know her husband's standing right here at the head of the bed, and her parents are down there at the foot of the bed. And it just gives you goosebumps, because she had some of that intuition that she's able to process that. And she said, and every time you walk in that door, you have a woman with you. And it's a mother of somebody you
My
took care
goodness.
of thanking you for your service. And it blows you away. I believe in it. I really do. But yes. And those
Mm,
people are there supporting and helping them into that journey. The last day that she was alive, she was pretty much sleeping and unarousable, and we knew that the end was coming. And all of a sudden, she just went like this to her hand, and didn't have a ring on it. And the daughter-in-law is like, I wonder if she wants her wedding ring back on. She put her wedding ring on her, and she took her last breath.
oh, girl. Okay.
Amazing.
Wow.
I love that. I love
Those
that.
are the
Mom.
type of things that families have no regrets. They have no regret bringing her home. They have no regret caring for her. And you don't get do-overs with your loved ones. So
Mm,
being able to coach them on the space and how to care for somebody, it was just an amazing experience.
mm.
I think
Go
I
ahead.
think I think education is so critical, right? Because those hospice books, like those booklets,
Correct.
please read them, everybody, because it is very helpful just to intellectualize the stages that your loved
Yes.
one is
Right,
going to go
right.
through, and for yourself, quite frankly, intellectualize what you will be going through, so you can have those honest conversations with your family members. Because it's not a pleasant thing to say, oh, well, okay, it's not, it can be unpleasant if it's something that you're uncomfortable. Or you could be like my mom, who's 90, and she's like, I already talked to the temple, and they're going to do XYZ. You better have money ready for them. And I'm like, oh, thank you, Mom. Okay. But
Right?
I mean, but I'd rather my mom have it all planned out, and like, it's going to
Yeah.
cost us tens of thousands of dollars now, apparently. But at least it's the way she wants it. She wants
Right.
to go out and what she's going to do. So going back to this, though, I mean, do we know when we're passing? Do we know ultimately that it's happening? When, in your experience, and Raquel, I guess in your healthcare, in home care
Mm-hmm.
experiences, and we should probably clarify, by the way, in home healthcare, there are different like phases, if you will.
Correct.
There's in home care, there's palliative, there's hospice, right, and then
Mm-hmm.
ultimately end of life. But okay, go back to my other question. Do we know? Do you think we know?
I'm going to
Mm.
let you take that one. That's a hard one.
That is definitely a difficult one, just because it depends on what stage, cognitively
Mm-hmm.
speaking, a person is, the age. There are so many different factors that will influence that, right? But in essence, if I had to venture to say, based on the experience and what I've seen over the last 20 years in healthcare, some do and others
Mm-hmm.
don't. And unfortunately, the individuals who suffer more from illnesses such as Alzheimer's and dementia, cognitively recallability, those are the ones who are definitely not aware.
Agreed.
And they'll have moments of, just lucid
Mm-hmm.
here and there. But no, I honestly don't think when it definitely impacts their cognitive abilities. So, yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. I agree. And there was another gentleman that I worked with, and he was more of he had respiratory issues, and he was in the hospital. And we went from respiratory having respiratory treatments to having a mask to then being on what we call BiPAP, and his wishes was never to be intubated. So we had that fine line of that he was kind of still awake, but his respiratory status was not going to support him, and his wishes were not to be ventilated. So, yes, medication on board to help decrease that anxiety. But I also do think that he was a little bit more cognitive and awake and knowing. And it was, again, another beautiful moment that we decided as a family, his family decided, his pastor was there, I was there. We held hands, we said a prayer, and then we went ahead and took the bypass machine off, and he peacefully went. But again, those are the things that I think that disease process versus something like the Alzheimer's disease or just any type of dementia disease is that cognitive ability is just different. So it really depends on the diagnosis.
You know,
Mhm.
if I may, speaking anecdotally, it just feels like to me of what I've seen is how many times have you seen folks at that towards the end of life where they see a relative, like they have vision?
Oh,
Is that common? Because I felt like 5 days or so before my sister passed, she said, "Hey, grandma's right there." And,
mm-hmm.
"Oh, the great grandmas." And I'm like, "How do you know they're great grandmas?" And she's like, "Well, they told me," right? Like the grandparents
100%.
were here. And I can't help but think, I think even my dad said, my daughter's here. And I'm like, what do you say? Like, how would you suggest to respond to that? Because there are some folks, for
Mm-hmm.
whatever reason, religious or just don't want to weirded out by ghosts or imagery of that
Sure.
nature. How would you coach or maybe suggest family members that maybe are asking about this?
I find it very real. I find that a majority of my clients say that they see other people. And with that, you support that. You just go along with it. Say, you know what, that it's okay to go with them. I had a lady in I believe January that I supported, and her daughter had passed from a violent domestic violence issue,
Oh,
and she held grief that she was not able to do more and support her and make that that was a very tough for her. She really didn't talk about it until the day before she passed,
mm,
and she said, I have regrets, I'm so sorry that I was not protecting her. And there at the end, or last day, I said, it's okay to be with your daughter. It is okay to go and be with your daughter. And I think that that's exactly what she was waiting to hear, and
that's
just
beautiful.
needing that needing that validation
Yeah.
that we will be fine, that her son will be fine, and that's okay. Go take care of your daughter now.
Mm. The level of emotional maturity and control, right, and
Hmm.
awareness that we need to have as professionals
Yeah.
is really high,
Yes.
because obviously we're there supporting other souls. However, when you go back home, I know my experience, I have to feel things. I
Mm-hmm.
feel and go through my own cycles of you can call it grief, you can call
Mm-hmm.
it processes, but being the kind of individuals we are, we're servant leaders, and we feel more often than many.
Right.
And so that for me has been very important, to be able to have a safety net where I can also um,
Mm-hmm.
grieve and vent. But how do you find peace within yourself? I know you mentioned, massaging, but
Mm-hmm.
in the process of saying goodbye,
Mm-hmm.
with the individuals, how do you find that peace? Okay.
Oh gosh. It really is not just with them. It's more of the family that I have a hard time with, to be honest, because once they pass, they're kind of gone, right? It's the family. I still get phone calls and
Mm.
messages, and Valentine's Day was just last month, and with that, all my widows, I went and took time that morning on February 14th, and I brought them a single rose and provided them a hug. Right? I'm like, oh, gonna
Aw.
cry. But, I know that they're the ones who are struggling now, and I need to support them as they continue this journey, as they have lost their loved ones. And for the most part, a lot of times these people have been married 50 plus years, right? I have
Mhm.
one lady that I am helping now, and after her husband died, she won't sleep in bed anymore. And it's been 3 years. She's sleeping in her
Mm.
recliner, right? So trying to be there to support her, to get her a grief counselor, to make those steps that she needs to take care of herself. But grief is a real thing. Yeah.
Oh my god, so many questions from the audience. Syya, there's a question there as well, right?
Oh, there's
There's
yeah.
tons.
There's
As we know,
tons. Like,
Janice will always have the great questions. And I just want to make one comment. Ethel, I would love to like share your comments, but they're really long and we don't want to cover beautiful Kim's face. So we'll just have to like but Ethel had some really great input about because she cares in the dementia space. So she's got a lot of experience with that. But so with Janice, here's this question I thought was interesting because I think this is something that I wanted to touch on later, but I guess we can talk about it, which is, do you find that when people work with death doulas,
mhm.
then the family has a better time with grief?
No. I think grief is grief, and everybody's going to process grief differently. I do feel that hospice does well, that they provided grief support. But a lot of times, working with a death doula, I think they don't have regrets. So I feel that if families work with a death doula, that the regrets aren't there because they're able to kind of talk through and process, and how can we make this the best that they want. But the grief is still going to be present. I a lot of times will give my client families a grief workbook, and it's a big one, anything from coloring to journaling to just writing, what does grief look like for you before this present passing of your loved one. So that is that's helpful for them. But I think
Mhm.
grief is still going to be present even with working with a death doula. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. You mentioned a keyword that for me is so important, right? And this applies to everyone, but regret.
Mm.
In your experience, is there a common theme that you've seen that people regret in their final
Um,
days?
I think it's more about, are we able to get all the family involved that want to be involved, right? Will people
Mhm.
drop their lives and come and be by the loved one? And that's the hard part, right? Because we don't know when this moment's going to happen, right? And is it going to be
Right.
tomorrow, or is it going to be 3 weeks? And people, I mean, as busy as life is, people just don't want to put their life on hold for 3 weeks to sit by dad's side waiting for that moment. So that's the conversation that I have a lot is, do you think I should come now? Do you think I should come now? When should I come? Right? And those are so hard. Those are hard conversations. And with that, that's where we have a lot of conversation, and we have a lot of conversation about regret. If you're comfortable with not being present, then that's okay. But if you are going to really have a big regret for not being present, then you need to be here.
Oh my God, you literally just rehashed an argument I had. Oh wait,
Yeah.
a friend of mine had with their family members about
Yeah.
I don't want to see him that way. I don't want my last memory of him to be like that.
Mhm.
Or her, sorry.
Yep.
A
Yeah.
friend
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
telling
Yeah.
me of their family experiences. But I have to okay, let me ask you this, because how do you address that? Because, like, maybe call me the a-hole, I mean, call my friend the a-hole. Uh, but part of me was like, you have a lifetime of memories. Just
Yeah.
because that last image there, that's
Yeah.
not gonna sear you for the rest of your life, of like my argument was, that's, yeah, you're gonna remember that, but that's not your only
A hundred
remembrance of
percent.
that person. So, but for some people, they're like, no, that will be my last memory. And I'm like, that's not how memories work, is my
And
argument. So Am I the
I agree
a-hole
with you.
in that?
Oh my gosh, I'm so passionate about this because truthfully, and this is where a death doula is going to be so supportive because a death doula is going to come and say, listen, you know what? This is what you're going to expect to see. You're going to see the shrunken in face. You're going to see the grayness. You're going to see the breathing is weird. You're going to see the dryness of there. And that's just, again, the biology aspect of your organs shutting down. But that's the natural process of death, right? And with that, it's us coaching them through. It's my medical background that coaches them through why things are happening. And if things are explained well, then I think the realization of, okay, that this is okay. And let's have
Yeah.
photos of our
Mhm.
great memories and our great days and surround ourselves with those. But this is the reality of the way we die.
And in that sense, I think it's a way
A
of
hundred
honoring, right?
percent.
The
Yes.
processes. Every process looks different, and being able to offer this space to honor and give grace to ourselves as well, because it is not definitely easy. And so that's the way I've
Mhm.
reframed it over the years, is give that space to honor
Right.
that moment and know that it is a natural part of life that doesn't change the grief, the amount of
Right.
pain that we feel, as because we're
Mhm.
here, we're still here, we're left behind, right? But just being able to reframe it and say,
And
honor
talking
it,
about honoring, I
give it a
love this. So when somebody passes, and I'm a lot of times, so for example, if we're in the home, and we've called hospice. Hospice comes, they have to do their thing, and then we're waiting for the funeral home to come for the body. And this is where I do a reflection with a family, and I do this poem that I read through, and I have everybody who is in the room to get a washcloth, and we do a warm washcloth and we just wipe and we say we honor the eyes, we honor the mouth that has spoken truth to us, we honor the shoulders that have bared the burdens, we honor the heart that has loved us, we've honored, and we just go down the body, and that's what we're doing. We are honoring the body that has carried this soul to give us life and to be such an instrumental part of our life, and it's given honor to that body. Yeah.
Oh, I love
Mhm.
that.
My goodness. And I just wanna say, and, individuals in the audience, thank you so much for your questions and definitely your comments and sharing some of your experiences. I know being that is not an easy topic, it could be, triggering for some. However, being able to
Mm.
honor that indeed it is difficult, just know that you have a community. Reach out to us. I know Kim is more willing and able than to give more advice, as part of the entity. And to me, like I said, it's a beautiful way just to honor our
Mhm.
loved ones in spirit as well. And after, if there's someone right now who's
Mhm.
struggling, with the idea and the fear of
Right.
losing a loved one, what main advice would you give them?
Gosh, that's a good one. It really rely on those caretakers that are with hospice. A lot of times, your loved one will really be on palliative care or hospice, right? And they have trained professionals that can help guide you and be there to support you and gift you to the right grief coach that you're going to need to be supportive, because it is going to be a years of journey afterwards too, right? It's not just the day that they pass, it's the years that go. It's the first birthday. It's the first Christmas. It's that first Valentine's Day, right? So, doing things that are going to be hard and having your support person lined up to be able to support you through that. I actually just talked last night on the phone with a daughter of a client that I has as an end of life doula, and her 1 year death anniversary is coming up with her mom on next Wednesday, and we talked through, right? We talked through, what are you going to do? What kind of support do you need? And she already has it planned out. She has mom in a little urn. She's taking her to the coffee shop with her. They're going to read a book. She's going to have coffee. She's going to go have
Oh,
lunch and a glass of wine. And so she has her day planned out, right? And she's taking mom on that day with her. But again, have that support person there. And if you don't have one, hospice could be a great place to start.
Oh my goodness. Yes, just because, I think of what about if, I think about the recent case with Gene
Mm,
Hackman, right? And his wife being the caregiver. If the
right.
caregiver is gone, then who do you have that will support that individual who's needing
Right.
your support? So it's just, it was such a sad situation, especially learning the details as they're emerging, right? But being able to have a community and having backup plans to the backup plans, I think it's
Very,
important.
very important. Again, it takes a village. It takes a village for somebody who has an illness that needs a 24-hour caregiver. It really does.
What are part of some of the preparations that you think that people can start literally doing today,
Yeah.
now,
First of all,
as we speak?
please make sure you have a power of attorney, you're living will, all that stuff.
Mm,
We've got to have that
mhm.
done and we've got to have that communicated with your loved ones. A lot of people have it and they did it 15 years ago. They put it in a lockbox and haven't looked at it or touched it or communicated that since. So make that known, make sure it's updated. That is one thing. And then with that, just again, I talked about it earlier, that conversation project. One of the questions is, who do you want involved in your circle, right? And that's who you go to. And make sure that those people are on board and they're all, knowing what's going on at all times.
Uh, and if I may add, by the way,
Mm.
power of attorney is medical, financial. So you got to
Correct.
make sure, and it could be two different people, you guys, if that's your wish.
100%.
And especially for those like, who are maybe not married or whatever, those
Mhm.
living wills, again, depending on your state laws and whatnot, absolutely there's power in that, especially for those that are like, in unions that are not recognized and whatnot. Just have that ready to go, because I hate to say it, peeps, you
It
never
gets
know how
ugly.
it gets ugly hella fast if they don't like you and your
Right.
partner for whatever reason. And, and
Yep.
or when money's involved.
Oh, well, Gene
Yes.
Hackman's case, right?
Yes.
And now the kids, I'm like,
Pe-
You just lost your father. We're gonna be feuding." I get it, it's millions, but however, like, come
Even
It
on.
for
gets
like
ugly.
$10, you'll see people fight over, which is really frightening and sad at the same time. So, Kim, can I ask you, Miss Kim,
Yes.
what timeline would you say a family should start engaging with an end of life? Like, I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like, uh, like, is it something
Yeah.
where okay, I guess I'm gonna have to ask that tasteless question. Like, how does one engage with you? And I'm talking from a business perspective, as far as
Sure.
like, money's extended in exchange. Like, is it
Yeah.
a year in advance and we just plan it out? Like, how can you really plan it out? Is it two
Sure.
weeks? Like, how does that work to engage with you, I guess?
No, that's a great question.
Without being
That's a great
tacky.
question. No, that's a great question. And I think that that's just it. Some families are just like, we don't know. How does this really work? Right. So a lot of times, end of life doulas, death doulas are just not reimbursed from insurance. It is a private pay situation. Some of them are hourly, some of them are package deals. It just depends. My service and with comforting transitions, is just an hourly rate. It's just easier that way because every situation is different. And with that, I have frank conversations, and some people are saying, you know what, um, I have $2,000, whatever service, the best bang for the buck. What do you think we need? And I can guide them from there. Some people are saying, you know what, lead us through this until the end and what you think we need, and then and that's so fine. But a lot of times it is, even if I could get involved with any type of terminal illness, when people know that they have a year or less, it's so hard to guide, right? But anybody who has dementia, I will tell you one thing, that person dies twice. They die when their memory is lost, and then they die when they physically pass. Because once that dementia diagnosis hits, it's a long road. It's a very long road. But what happens is that loved one is starting to grieve at that diagnosis because they are not going to be the same person, and it's heartbreaking. It really is. So don't think you don't need support, because at some point, I mean, with somebody with like that, does that Alzheimer's or any type of Lewy body, or any of the dementia diagnosis, is that an end of life doula can support the family for many, many years.
So
So
you're giving me a message, which is more or less when you're doing your end of life planning in general for,
yeah,
again, and by the way, I just want to add with Ethel, she did point out, after death occurs, a power of attorney dies with that person. So that's good to know that this is like in pre-death situation, and then there's your will and living trust and all that
and
stuff,
that's where
right?
having an elder law attorney and doing probate and all that stuff out of my wheelhouse, but get an elder law attorney and they could walk you through that.
Exactly. But it just seems like to me it would make sense though if you're doing that, you're planning your burial, your cemetery grounds, or if you're going to do
Right.
cremation or whatever. Or my mom she's already planned it all out. We're gonna have a
Yep,
party and
yep, yep,
there's gonna
yep.
be trumpets blowing everywhere. But anyway, it makes sense to just say the end of life doula should just be part of it, right? Like, so it would strike me as we need to normalize
Mm-hmm.
to help. It's not so much to help the person that's dying, but the person that is the family that's left behind. So
100%.
then so everything is taken care of. They've got a guide that
Mm-hmm.
they don't have to. I hate to say this in this way, but it's like they're grieving and then you have to
Mm-hmm.
invoice them. To me, that just seems like a very tough.
100%.
It seems
It
so
sucks.
awkward.
It sucks. But I can tell you the benefit that we receive from a death doula, they would pay it over and over again, right? From the feedback that I've gotten, it was such an invaluable opportunity for them to have somebody walk with them. I want to give you two more stories. Do I have time? Can I give you a
Yeah.
story? I love this story.
Yeah.
So I was supporting a gentleman who was not well, and he was actually in the hospital. His wife was alone and didn't have any other family support because they were out of state. And so I connected with her. I was there to be with her as her husband transitioned from the hospital to rehab and then back to the hospital. And he had to go down for a CT test. And I said, you know what? Let's step out and let's go grab some lunch. Let's get out of the hospital for a little bit. So we went over to a local restaurant, had some lunch, and they had these big Rice Krispies to go and wrapped up. And she said, you know what? He really loves Rice Krispies. So she bought one, put it in her purse. And later that day, he still wasn't doing well, wasn't eating. He passed without ever having his Rice Krispie treats. So I made platters and platters of Rice Krispie treats and individually wrapped those and brought those to the funeral home. So everybody was able to enjoy a Rice Krispie treat. And there, before they closed the casket, the funeral director let the 13-year-old grandson put a Rice Krispie treat in his coffin before they casted it, right? So those are the memories that the family will always cherish. And that 13-year-old grandson being able to share a Rice Krispie treat with grandpa is just priceless.
Wow.
Those are the memories that are going to hold on to them versus the tragedy of death. And then knowing his family background and his heritage, and what he wanted, I scheduled a bagpiper for his burial, and just putting those special extra little touches. Now looking back on it, I still get comments from the wife thanking me from making it as memorable as possible.
I
So
love that. It is, you know what it is? It's like comforting to know that you're there, right? Like it's
yeah.
comforting to know there's someone
Yeah.
here. And okay, I have to ask. We got it. We are wrapping up. But there's three more questions. But I'm gonna throw
Yes, let's
one
do
of
it.
mine in there because I'm selfish and darn it, I control the controls. Uh, how often do you find yourself being the middleman? I mean, do you get wrapped up in the family politics of things at times? Like, or how do you separate
Mm.
yourself to be like,
I
yeah,
will.
this is on you people to like deal with?
No, I tell you, like the first time I have conversations asking me to be part of, as an end of life and support them is what's the family dynamic, right? I want to know that off the bat because there are
Mm.
sometimes I
Yeah.
am literally the gatekeeper. I am all right, the son can come in for 2 hours, he goes, and then I call the daughter in, right? Because the siblings are no longer getting together and along. And so it's unfortunate that it does happen. And I will tell you, when the family does get along, when the family's on the same page, when the family respects each other, I let them know that. I let them know that this is not always normal. I thank them for the respect that they have for each other, because it's not always the case.
Okay, I saw this
Mm.
on TikTok, and this is a hospice nurse, and I don't know if you guys seen her. She's amazing. Very candid conversation. She's in her car, and basically the person that is in the
Mhm.
process of dying asked to see their child, and the child went no contact. And I mean,
Yeah.
that's got to be an awkward. She did call on behalf of the client, right?
Mhm.
And the daughter flat out said, no, absolutely not, under no circumstances. Have you encountered that? Like, you're stuck in that position where you're
I
like
have.
having to tell your client that, like, I'm sorry, but this
I
is it.
actually have, not with a mother-child relationship, but a husband and ex-wife, right? You get the exes. And the wife is terminal and passing in the next few weeks, and the ex-husband keeps reaching out. I want to see her. I would love to see her. I would want to see her. And she said, "No, my time with you is over." And I have to respect that, right? But knowing his heart is aching that he's not able to say his goodbye. And, they've been married for 40 plus years. And at the end, it just didn't work out. But it's hard. It's hard.
Oh my goodness.
And I think
Ooh, I mean, we could do a whole
But I
series
think
of
this is
this.
yet again a reminder of
Yeah.
bringing in someone to address it earlier on, because
Oh,
at that final stage, it shouldn't have been a last minute request of, like,
right.
or
Right.
if it is a last minute request, you knew the answer, but you're like, I'm gonna try a Hail Mary. Like,
And yes, yes. Or, I say, okay, then why don't you write a letter and I'll read her the letter if she feels she wants to hear it. Right? So we can find ways to work that and see if we can make that happen. And we'll wait and see. I mean, besides family relationships and strain that way, you just mentioned Hail Mary, and it brought my mind thinking religion and faith is
Yep.
so
Spirituality.
important at the end. And I had another client that grew up very Catholic, and then at the end said, "I'm kind of done with the Catholic faith, and I'm just a universal believer, and it be fine," right? And what does that look like at the end, right? Her family's like, she needs her last wishes, and I asked her, and she said, "No, that's not who I am anymore." Right? So that also brings conflict on their preference, their belief, and what the family wants and thinks the best, right? I mean, we could talk about that forever too. I mean, this is a conversation
oh, girl,
with so many topics.
honestly, I'd love to do like a
Mhm.
series, like a sub series with you. I mean, I could have you here all freaking day personally. Okay, so
Yes.
Janice, she always asks great questions, and we're just simply running out of time. So I'm going to ask him, if you don't mind, in the chat,
Yes.
if you can go back and answer Janice's questions. But
And
I'm sorry, Raquel.
no, that's fine. If there's not another question, make sure that we
Well,
know how to
that is
find Miss
Janice's
Kim.
last question. How do people find you?
Yeah,
Yes,
there you
thank you.
go.
I have a website, comfortingtransitions.com. I am on LinkedIn, not regularly, to be honest. I spend a lot of my time with clients instead of social media, which is my wish. But in that regard, all my information and contact information is on my website, comfortingtransitions.com. I have a Facebook page, Comforting Transitions, as well. So yeah, those are a couple simple socials that I am on.
Oh my goodness. Well, Miss Kim, thank you so much for honestly the wealth of knowledge that you've
For
imparted
sure. It's
with us
always
today.
a
Just
delight.
because I love it. It was a delightful,
Mm,
difficult conversation, but one that must
right.
be, we have to do it. There's just no other way around it. But I think just being able to reframe this conversation, this topic in a way that we honor,
Yes.
as opposed to fear
Yes.
and try to like run away from it or delay honoring. It's the main takeaway that I
Yeah.
have for the
Yes.
day.
Absolutely
So
agree.
Kim, thank you so very much for joining us. Seriously, we're going to go offline and chat, because I think I said it last time we were here. I'm like, we need to do a sub-series. Like, seriously, like, we just have to. Like, I've decided you're stuck with me, girl. We're doing something. On that note, I do want to give one more big thanks to Cindy Christina. We did, Raquel and I
Great
did take
gals.
over Engines Off. We felt very strongly. Unfortunately, they couldn't make it, and so we're like, nope, we're not skipping this. We're going to have a deeper conversation on the end of life process. You know, having someone like Kim around as an end of life doula. There's so much wisdom in that. Don't be afraid. Plan ahead. These are my takeaways, kids. Plan ahead.
Yes,
Plan
yes,
ahead.
yes, yes.
And you know what? I think personally, for the price point of leveraging someone with your skill sets and service, is like a no-brainer to help keep the family understanding it's going to be ugly, because dying is not a fun thing, but at least we can be educated about it. We can be prepared is the big thing. And that to me equals peace of mind. And I think that to me, Kim, is really your true value, is you're offering peace of mind for this process. That's really ultimate. And
no regrets, right?
No regrets whatsoever. Thank you so very much. On that note, I know Raquel's about to, gosh darn it, girl, stop. She cries. This girl's a crier.
I'm a feeler. What can I say?
It makes us good at
But
what we
this is
do.
a very touching
You're gonna make me cry.
conversation.
I'm like, damn it, we're almost done here. Okay.
Yeah,
So
we're
we're
almost
almost
done.
done, and we have some parting words with our sponsors, Tausi Brands and Mobility Towel. Everyone, thank you so very much, and we will see you next month on Engines Off. Thanks, Kim.
Falling asleep with your neck in the wrong position can be a real pain in the neck. Literally. People of all ages are falling for Tausi. Tausi gives you the comfort you've always dreamed of. Go to TausiBrands.com and get your comfort on.
So as you can see, you can grab the loops, and with the weights, it's going to allow that towel to stay. You don't have to grasp the towel. You don't have to grasp